Staggering bosses is great for giving the player tanking the boss a breathing window and lets you trigger the Skullcrusher Blessing on many weapons to give a massive 80% damage boost for a brief window while the monstrosity is staggered, and on the Beast of Nurgle specifically, nearly indefinitely, which I will explain at the end of the video to obscure the intel from Fat Shark. Coordinating your team around Skullcrusher will allow you to kill bosses much faster, so let's take a look at how each class can stagger monstrosities. The veteran has a very easy time staggering bosses, and typically has one or two methods in most builds. Both the Krak grenade and shredder grenade stagger monstrosities, as well as shell. The Arbitrator already has a lot of bonuses to stagger, but still isn't naturally able to stagger monstrosities with melee attacks without some help. Probably the easiest way is to spec Concussive and just hit a weak spot, causing the enemy to count as staggered for 4 seconds. This is likely the most consistent way to capitalize on Skullcrusher, but you should continue to use other abilities to maximize uptime. Like the veteran's throwables, the Arbites grenade also staggers a boss when it detonates. The dog bomb also staggers bosses. Ping the boss to send Rover to sick him and then detonate it once he is latched on. The Arbites has access to the Shock Maul and Crusher to consecrate Skullcrusher, as does the Zealot. The Zealot only has one way to stagger a boss, but luckily it's a very commonly spec'd ability and staggers repeatedly. Using the Chorus of Spiritual Fortitude, i.e. book, will stagger a boss with each pulse. You will be able to sneak in a few hits after the book has finished to get those Skullcrusher stacks in, but your team will be able to stack Skullcrusher with their weapons, vastly improving their DPS. The Hive Scum has 2 ways to stagger bosses. The Boombringer itself will stagger bosses and is a good opener to get the DPS rolling. Forge's Bellow is also great to stack Skullcrusher, both at the opening and ending of the ability. Psykers don't have any way to stagger bosses that I have found. However, being a DPS class, they benefit tremendously from the 80% damage buff that Skullcrusher provides. The Ogryn has, by far, the most ways to stagger bosses. All 3 throwables will stagger a boss, though the big friendly rock does require a weak spot hit. The Box of Hurt is particularly good because the smaller charges detonate over time. Bull Charge is capable of staggering bosses, of course. Taunt also will stagger bosses when first activated, but only has a small window to apply Skullcrusher, and therefore has a small window to capitalize upon the extra damage. The only weapons for Ogryn that don't have Skullcrusher availability are the Knife and Delver's Pickaxe. All the other melee weapons have Skullcrusher. Consider designating someone to tank the boss with Skullcrusher while the rest of the team works to stagger and then DPS the boss down. Onto the Burgle. All monstrosities recover very quickly from stagger, except for the Beast of Nurgle, which seems to just remain in the staggered state once staggered, and allows you to apply and benefit from Skullcrusher repeatedly, and will proc Skullcrusher when hitting it anywhere once you've hit the pimple a few times. Massively improves the team's DPS for the Burgle, and burns it down nearly twice as quickly, saving any ingested players and freeing strike team members to deal with other threats. Sometimes this can be activated by hitting it from the front, but is most reliable by hitting the pimple. If you don't have a HUD that shows enemy debuffs, listen for this squishing sound that the Burgle makes after you've hit it a few times. Other bosses need coordination to take advantage of Skullcrusher. Some abilities are better for staggering bosses repeatedly, like the Book for Zealot, allowing the team to benefit from Skullcrusher Stacks. A coordinated strike team can pre-game an encounter, allowing to take maximum advantage of Skullcrusher by designating a staggerer and a stacker, while the DPS uses cooldowns to take advantage of the time when Skullcrusher is active. Skitarii sadly does not have any way to stagger bosses. Even the mighty Cordclaw can't do it. However, Skullcrusher and the Devil's Claw is still an amazing blessing, particularly when combined with the Skitarii's Electrostrike Conduit node. Even the mighty Crusher counts as staggered when electrocuted. Now with every critical hit with ESC, allowing you to hold your ground and keep swinging, keeping your DPS up. I'm working on a Devil's Claw video. When completed, I will link it here. For now, watch this video that was selected by the Omnissiah for you specifically.